Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name's Joe Kuzma, and joining me to my side, I don't know what he's singing or humming along to over there, one Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, it's week 16 of the NFL season. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing excellent. I am humming along to the wonderful Joe Kuzma Elf on the Shelf song that I sang to you a few moments ago. That enraged you to no end.
It did enrage me. I apologize in advance, folks. I'm feeling a little nasally, like the dry throat thing. We actually already had a second take of this just to start the show. Couldn't even get through it. And that kind of is a good segue or a good correlation with what I'm ready for the holidays already. Number one, like, let's get through this. You know what I mean? But that's the way I'm starting to feel about the Pittsburgh Steelers season and where it's fallen. And there's plenty to talk about here as they have another Saturday game here, 4:30, final home game. It's the fan appreciation game, Brian. We would appreciate a win. And I honestly, I don't know how to vibe with this particular game. The Steelers have actually done well in the AFC North. For all intents and purposes, they should be undefeated. If they could have gotten like 15 yards, they might have had a chance against the Browns. With that being the loss, they've beaten the Ravens. They split the Browns. They've already have a win against the Bengals in Cincinnati with Jake Browning as the starting quarterback. I know Jake Browning's had his success thus far, as has Zach Taylor. I believe I was going to look up Zach Taylor. I think is he 4-5 with the Steelers? He's like about split, which is far more than his predecessor ever was, Marvin Lewis. It was like that was almost an insta dub. There's no more insta dubs anymore in the Steelers world, unfortunately. Let's start with this. Without getting into the keys or the nuts and bolts, just on the very surface, is this a winnable game for the Steelers?
Here's the thing. That's how difficult it is to determine. On the surface, the answer is no. There are no winnable games for the Steelers left. But the flip side of that is every one of the games is technically winnable, right? It just depends on what's going to happen in the sense of, can the defense make some big plays? Right? And not turn the ball over. Can they get the turnaways? If they just have zero margin for error, we keep saying this, but it's true. They don't have any margin for error. And in fact, their margin for error is probably negative, meaning you have to have the other team make several mistakes in order for you to win. You have to play perfect, plus the other team has to make 3 mistakes, and then you've got a shot at winning.
Yeah. So anyways, Mike Tomlin, is that right? That can't be right. That has to be old information. Let me get it. I was going to say Mike Tomlin's got a better record than that against Cincinnati Bengals, but Zach Taylor is 4-5. Overall, 5 seasons in the NFL, believe it or not, you would think he has more success than what he actually does. 36-42 as the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, which Mike Tomlin is 24-9 all time against Cincinnati. So let me see here. Just to kind of throw my 2 cents on, is it a winnable game? It is a yes and no. I think these teams, for various reasons, are evenly matched. And it's more or less because of the injuries, the attrition they're all dealing with. It's a home game. That doesn't really mean a hill of beans anymore in Pittsburgh land. And how in the hell, this is what I was going to start this show off with too. How in the hell did the Cincinnati Bengals end up with a better record thus far than the Steelers? This just seems like impossible with 3 games left on the schedule, that you're looking at an 8-6 Bengals team without Joe Burrow and now without several other players. So Jake Browning is in for the Bengals. Kenny Pickett is out for the Steelers. He did return to doing some practice work, but Mike Tomlin ruled him out earlier today. And Mason Rudolph now gets the nod. Mitch Trubisky benched at the end of the last game. So I don't know if this gives any edge to the Steelers whatsoever. The Bengals have had their share of success defensively and also their lack of success defensively. It sounds just like the Steelers defense in the same essence. I think the biggest key here, though, is for the Bengals. I think the first time around they didn't have T. Higgins, and with Jake Browning, a lot of people don't realize T. Higgins is a wide receiver one. I don't think he returns to Cincinnati next year. I think it'd be highly unlikely. I don't know where they find couch pocket change and whatnot to do a contract. He got drafted the same year as Joe Burrow. With him and Jamar Chase, good luck trying to cover all of those guys, especially with where the Steelers are trying to pick bodies off the street.
Is Chase out?
Chase is ruled out. And I believe Minka not ruled out as well.
I'm pretty sure Minka was ruled out. I thought he was.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm going to double check that real quick. And it doesn't matter. DeMonte Casey now suspended for the rest of the year, which I think is preposterous. And I was trying to remember, like, they said he was a multiple offender. I don't remember him being suspended like Kareem Jackson of the Denver Broncos, who was throwing around a bunch of dirty hits. I think he just got caught in a crossfire, some other things. I know he had gotten fined for something here or there, and I believe he also appealed and won his appeals on the fine. So how does that make you a repeat offender if you pull the fine away and say, oh, well, you know what, you were right anyways? So he appeals, and they said, oh, well, you could just serve a 3-game suspension, and if you make the playoffs, then you could play again. I mean, just another damaging blow to the Steelers team that, you know, has not had much luck in keeping bodies on the field or consistent starters.
Yeah.
I mean, well, my other point here was, and we were surmising this, Patrick Peterson's taking some reps as a safety.
Yep.
I mean, he's kind of falls into playing the deep center fielder sometimes just by, you know, virtue of his, of the way the Steelers disguise their schemes. But he's not like outright played safety. I know they're trying to maybe get Elijah Riley back, who's been on injured reserve. And it's like, whoa, whoop-de-doo. You got him. Maybe you got Trenton Thompson. It's not looking too hot when you're down like 3 safeties when you talk about Minka, DeMonte Casey, and then don't forget Keanu Neal. That might be a difficult task for anyone. Hopefully Joey Porter Jr. is up to task and follows T. Higgins around, and maybe you can mitigate some of the damage that Jake Browning can do otherwise without having Jamar Chase and his full complement of Bengals wide receivers.
Yeah. Here's the thing. This game, as much as it's going to pain me to say this game hinges on one Mason Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, right? Everything else is the same, so to speak, right? Yeah, the defense is down, but the defense has been down all week. They've done a good job. They know Cincinnati better than they know certain other teams. They know the stuff that they're going to throw at them. They can scheme for that. They can try and handle those things, right? What doesn't change is the offensive playbook. So is Mason Rudolph the guy to take the Matt Canada playbook and suddenly turn it into a dynamic offense that can produce 24 points? And I'm saying 24 points because I think if they could score 24 points, they can win. The problem is I don't have any confidence they can score 20 points or 14 points. 24 seems like a stretch. I don't know. Mason's a guy who has thrown whatever he did in the last game is the last real work he got in a couple years.
Yeah, right? that's the bitter pill to swallow, to be honest, is he hasn't played in forever. He seems to have played decent when having not played forever, being called in cold and whatnot. I've mentioned, actually, there was a good comment that, and we mentioned it kind of in the same way, but it was a little more succinct of, you know, when you saw Mason come in for Ben Roethlisberger, there was disappointment because he wasn't Ben Roethlisberger. He wasn't doing Ben Roethlisberger things. He wasn't putting up Ben Roethlisberger like numbers. But after you've seen what Mitch Trubisky's done, after even you've seen what Kenny Pickett does, Mason Rudolph may look like a fresh breath of air. And I say this with like an asterisk, obviously, because as I mentioned, when he played against the Cleveland Browns, he threw for like 300 yards. I think he had a TD and a pick, or 2 TDs and a pick, or something like that. You know, it's just that actually, I mean, it's not great. We'll put it that way. But you could win. And he played against the Lions, and you had those fumbles, and they were like, "Oh, well, he couldn't beat the Lions." And I know the Lions were supposed to be like a cakewalk. He didn't have a walkthrough. He didn't have a practice, so he had some things against him. But even 2019. 8 starts, 7 starts, back and forth with Duck, getting a concussion, getting knocked out, Myles Garrett incident, broke his collarbone. Dude was like pulled out of games 3 times, twice due to injury, and another one just kind of, I guess mental health after the stuff that went on with Cleveland. We talked about some of the people that he was throwing the football to back in 2019, Johnny Holton, Deion Kane. I was laughing. Zachary Smith, who I think, I don't want to mislabel who Zachary Smith does some Steelers work for, but if you're in the Twitter or the X circles, you've seen him and our Zach Flash Celedonia. They're constantly in a bromance of Zachs. And he had a full list of video of Mason Rudolph highlights. And it's like he's throwing to like Deion Kane, Johnny Holton. He did find Deontay, Juju, but for the most part, Deontay missed some time, Juju missed some time, James Conner missed some time back then. And then but he had a better offensive line, even though the offensive line was kind of falling apart at that point. You look at the offensive line now, and even though he may have better skill position players, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, Jaylen Warren, I kind of think to myself, does he have enough time to deliver the football in the same way he did in those previous games where you have Marquise Pouncey or David DeCastro? And mind you, we remember back then, Brian, the healthiest guy that wasn't an offensive lineman who played the most snaps that season was a guy that was never usually healthy, Vance McDonald, back in 2019. So it tells you how much turmoil there was with that 2019 team, and why I always thought, there wasn't a fair shaker evaluation on a one Mason Rudolph. I don't know that you're going to get a fair shaker evaluation here. It looks like they're going to try and push Kenny to play the next 2 games, regardless of what Mason does. And the best you could ask for is that he doesn't turn the football over, makes a couple of plays, keeps the defense honest, and they're able to run the football the way they were in the first encounter.
Yes. If they can, you assume the Cincinnati Bengals are going to have learned from the first encounter, right? And they're going to have adjusted. We ran the ball, sorted down their throats. We were able to pound the rock. Najee had a good game. Jalen had a good game. Okay. Here's what I can guarantee you we're going to try and do. The same shit. Okay? That's what we're going to try and do because it worked the last time. If, in fact, Cincinnati decides to stack the box, right? We are going, if they're smart, this is what they'll try and do, stack the box and say, we're not going to let you do that to us again. If you can, well, bad on us, good on you. It just means you're tougher than us. After watching the last few games, I don't know that we're tougher than anybody. So I can't feel like this team is going to out physical the Bengals, because I can't feel like they're going to out physical anybody. Okay, so they're going to say, Mason Rudolph, we dare you to beat us. We dare you to find open receivers and connect with them without throwing it to guys in the white uniforms instead of in the black uniforms. If you can do that and we lose, we can take that because, hey, whatever, we stopped your running game. And then maybe they adjust midway and they figure out a way to try and do both. And maybe if we can get a lead, all these maybes we haven't had happen except maybe one game this year, right? We came from behind in the Raiders, but then we built up a lead, right? And it's all just a mess of guesses at this point, because I just don't know whether Mason Rudolph is going to be a capable QB at this point in his career, or whether he's going to be a very rusty, not very prepared, still uncertain kind of guy who's like, whatever. Here's the best thing about Mason Rudolph right now, right? He's got nothing to lose.
Yeah. Well,
He's got
I mean,
absolutely nothing to lose.
Mitch Trubisky had nothing to lose either.
And
But
with Mitch Trubisky and nothing to lose, he still thinks he has something to lose. He still thinks that there's tape out there that says Mitch Trubisky can be a quality starting quarterback, and so he has to be a little safe. But there isn't anymore. The tape has been wiped. All of the tape from the first 2 years he was in Chicago when it looked like maybe he could be a starting quarterback, that's all gone. Somebody burned it. The only tape left is the last 2 seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that tape is terrible.
I'm sorry, but I'm so sick of hearing like, oh, well, he was good with the Bears those first 2 years. The Bears had the best defense in the NFL those years also. They turned the ball over. They gave him short fields. That 6-touchdown game that he had was like he threw 22 passes or something. Here, let me go through some Mason Rudolph numbers for you, and you can tell me whether or not these are good enough for a win, yes or no. 12 of 19, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick.
Maybe.
No. Obviously, he didn't win. That was the Seattle game. He came in at halftime for Ben. Terrell Edmonds with the pass interference. 14 to 27, 174, 2 TDs, and a pick.
Maybe.
Should have, but we had a fumble in San Francisco. And that's only 51% completion percentage, by the way. 24-28, 229, 2 touchdowns, no picks.
That should be good enough to win.
Incidentally, defeats the Cincinnati Bengals 27-3. By the way, the Steelers' last game 16-10. The only touchdown was Najee Harris on a rushing touchdown too. The rest was all field goals too. So very low scoring game. Okay, 13-20, a TD, no pick, 131 yards. 131 yards was not getting it done, right?
A TD, no pick. Here's why I keep saying maybe, right?
Yeah, because he's not turning the ball over.
Because if you put up 14 points, you have a chance to win, right? If the defense doesn't allow any points, and if the turnover doesn't turn into points for the other team, you have a chance to win. With this last one where you said, what, 1 TD? Probably not, right?
Yeah. Okay. And it's all for 2019. So let's say 251 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick, 191, 1-1, 242, 1-0. All wins. 3 wins in a row. And those all came at home, by the way. He's got the game that was a Thursday nighter against Cleveland where they lose 21-7. It was 23 of 44, 221, 1 touchdown and 4 picks. Here's another thing that bugs me too, Brian, is like when people were talking about, well, Mason turned the ball over there. Do you remember Mason's first pick in the NFL? It was pretty much like his first throw as an NFL quarterback because he didn't play as rookie. He didn't have a quarterback's coach after that because Randy Fichtner was just doing everything. He was Ben's buddy. It was off the hands of Dante Moncrief. Does anyone remember Dante Moncrief in the first game of that year in 2019? Wasn't he the sacrificial lamb for all the problems that were wrong with that Steelers offense that put up 3 points with Ben Roethlisberger up at New England? And everybody, like, nobody's forgotten who Dante Moncrief was, unless you're talking about Mason Rudolph and how he played with him up until he got traded after like week 8 or cut week 8. He was on this roster off and on playing time and then got put on the unemployment line. He was 8 of 16, 85 yards before he got yanked. He had a pick against the Cincinnati Bengals at Cincinnati, and then against the Jets later that year, 14 to 20, 129, a touchdown and an interception. His other plays or games, really the only one of note to bring up was that one Browns game. 22 of 39, 315 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception back in 2020. And then in 2021, with no warning, 30 of 50, the overtime game tie against the Detroit Lions, where he put up 242 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Let me tell you, anything over 200 yards seems like a franchise quarterback for this team right now. And if he can muster anything like that, and mind you, I'm not writing off Kenny Pickett at this point just yet. But I haven't even seen Kenny kind of put up like a consistent, like you look at Mason's numbers and you go his 2019 games. All but one game he threw a touchdown pass in. And let's see, he had 10 games that he was in. 4 of those, he threw 2 touchdown passes. These are like Mitch Trubisky, Chicago Bears numbers, to be completely honest. Mitch was like pretty much a 1 or 2 touchdown guy, game manager. That's all you need from Mason. Now, what you need is the offense to support him. You need offensive line to block. I know Isaac Sumalo is a question mark on this injury report. Let's see. He was limited in practice. We don't have the full Thursday report yet. The 2 DMPs, obviously Trenton Thompson still with his neck, so he may not even have Thompson aside from Minka Fitzpatrick, and everybody else kind of returned to full strength there, including on the Bengals side, the only DMP, Jamar Chase, but they also lost on their side, DJ Reader. So, excuse me. That might help when you have somebody like Trey Hendrickson who has 15 sacks and is among the leaders.
It is this simple, right? The defense cannot allow the other team to score more than 14 points. If they do, it better not be more than 17, because at 17, maybe we got a chance. If the other team is over 20 points, our chances of winning the game are probably under 1%. It's just the facts of the way this team has performed. How many games have we had over 20 points so far this season?
20-point games are hard to come by for the Steelers. How much of that do you actually – there's like a lot of trolling going on that says they scored more points with Matt Canada as the OC, as though there aren't lingering effects of that Jag being part of this team this year. Like, come on. You know what I mean? And the rest of it, as you're looking over the last few games, guess who the common denominator was? He's now riding a pine, and you got Mason Rudolph, who hasn't played in the NFL in 2 years, just took his job. We're talking about Mitch Trubisky. Is he the only problem? No. I understand the George Pickens thing. He's being raked over the coals, as you said he would be, for not blocking. The bigger problem, I think, with George Pickens there is, man, if you're going to come up with some excuse as to why you weren't throwing a block,
better not be that one.
Yeah, come on, say something else. Like, hey, I've been tagged with holding penalties. They've actually scored more than 20. I wouldn't have guessed this off the top of my head. 5 times this year, which I mean isn't a lot, but for this team, I wouldn't have guessed that.
How much more than 20?
20 on the dot against the Tennessee Titans.
Throw that one out because that's not over.
Okay, 4 games. My bad. 23 apiece against the Raiders and Packers, 24 against the Rams, and 26 against the Cleveland Browns.
All right. So
in week 2.
Is 26 our high water mark for the season? What did we score against the Raiders at one time?
23.
All right. So 26 is our high water mark for the season.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There you go. We have 0 chance to win if the other team scores more than 6 points.
Well,
maths with Brian. There it is. It's simple maths, right?
Well, and how many points have the Bengals?
Best we've done is 26, the very best. So if the other team scores more, that equals a loss. And the fact that we've only done that once means there's very little chance we actually do it again.
Okay, here we go. Maths with Joe. All right. How many times have the Bengals scored more than 20 points this year? And I wonder how many of those have been without Joe Burrow. Well, they've put up 34 in an overtime game with the Jaguars. They put up 34 against the Colts, who the Steelers could not muster a victory against. And they also put up 34 earlier in the year in October against the Arizona Cardinals. They had 31 against the San Francisco 49ers. They also, another team the Steelers couldn't beat. They lost to the Texans. They put up 27 against the Texans and the Vikings, 24 against the Ravens and the Bills, and again came back around and put 20 on the Ravens. And then 17 and 19 on the Rams and Seahawks. So it is one of their lowest game outputs, actually. Steelers with 10. That's one of their losses, and they gave up. They could only get 3 points against the Cleveland Browns and Tennessee Titans. Both of those games earlier this season, and the one with the Browns was September 10th of this year. So opening week with a dinged Joe Burrow, who was probably, feeling it the whole year. So they have the offensive weapons. I mean, Joe Mixon doesn't scare me, but individually he's having a good year. 815 yards on the ground. It's just shy of 4 per carry, 8 touchdowns, 48 first downs running the football. Or, I mean, if I look at the Steelers, and I'm going to, let me see. Najee has 33 first downs, and Jalen Warren has 29. The thing is, at one point, we thought both of these guys might be able to be 1,000-yard backs, both of them. Now you've got 3 games left, and I have serious doubts. The only thing that you need Mason to be able to do here is push the ball just a little bit to get these guys out of the box. You cannot be in a 3rd and long situation where they're going to send Mike Hilton on a blitz, which is, we know Mike Hilton's bread and butter is being a blitzing DB. And we also know that the Steelers will not pick that up, especially if it's Dan Moore's side. You're going to have, and then if you do pick that up, somebody has to come into that equation. Jalen Warren, probably. And now you take him out, who's your little dump outlet kind of pass, and now the pocket starts to collapse. But you got to be able to pass still from the pocket. The mobile quarterback thing, I think, is completely overdone, overblown in the NFL. You could run around, you could extend plays, but that can't be the only thing you do is move around, drop like 50 steps back, jumping and passing off of your back foot. Like all the things we saw Mitch do. We saw Kenny picking up some of these bad habits. I think if Mason stands tall in the pocket, he's not scared. But we even saw Brian Baldinger point out, his eyes dropped, left from reading the field at one point during the last game where he got in. And it's like, at that point, though, I don't know what he's able to do. It's really a no-win situation there, in my opinion. It's not the best evaluation for Rudolph. So as far as that goes, I guess we're going to have to see Asuamalo. I imagine offensive lineman, unless he's really hurting and he already played through this injury once. Hopefully they have some consistency there and they could help this dude out. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, you've got problems still too. Like we already mentioned the safeties, but you still got the inside linebackers. Blake Martinez started the last home game. Then he was inactive last time because all they were trying to do is kind of use somebody that could stop the run and maybe communicate out there. There's talk of whether Miles Jack's going to be playing or not in this game too. You still got Michael Walker. You still got a lot of middle of the field problems. We talked about whether the Colts would be able to, exploit with their tight ends. Mo Alley Cox got a touchdown and all this other stuff. And that's not really the strength of the Cincinnati Bengals. It's more their receivers, more Tyler Boyd in the slot, maybe having a bigger game. As long as they could put some pressure on Jake Browning. You've got Cam Hayward healthy for this one. He's out of the concussion protocol. Got to get Watt and Alex Highsmith going. The Bengals offensive line, for all intents and purposes, this is part of the reason Jake Browning's had success too. They are a better group on paper and probably on the field as well. So the Steelers defense is going to have to help that secondary, or else you're going to run into this. I don't know that they're going to give up the run game in the same way. Mixon could get some chunks here or there. And you also got, what was the other younger player that's one of their running backs? Chase Brown, who's, he could be a good change of pace. So, you're just going to have to, it's not like a confidence building game, right? I'll tell you what. Here's something that might help. This is something I gave some thought about during the week. Almost wrote an article over at steelcityunderground.com, which we will be taking a few days off for the holidays. We may not even have, it all depends on how we feel when we get on our schedules, Brian. But with, Christmas Eve following this game, we're traveling. You're going to be at the game too, right?
I'm going to be at the game and I'm coming home that night. So I'll be home by Christmas Eve.
Yeah, and I'm staying with family over that way. So, we'll programming note. We'll see if we get back on with the post game. If it's something that's like really bad, we did not disappear, but it doesn't help us like say, "Hey, family, stay over there. Don't keep the food and the eggnog warm and whatever else." And but this might inspire some confidence, right? Gardner Minshew against Steelers. 18 of 28, 215, 3 touchdowns, and a win. Joe Flacco, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and they won. Derek Carr, 23 of 28, 218 yards, 3 touchdowns, and they won. Case Keenum, filling in for CJ Stroud, 23 of 36, 229, a TD and a pick, and they won. Brock Purdy, on a whole other planet, mind you, only had to attempt 25 passes in his game with the 49ers. He completed 16 of those for 242 and 4 touchdowns. I'm not looking for that type of performance from one Mason Rudolph. Matt Stafford, and they won. Matt Stafford, okay? Matt Stafford and the Rams, 25-33, 258, 2 touchdowns. They won. Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills. Who would have thunk this one? 7 of 15 for 94 yards passing with 1 touchdown. They won. Lamar Jackson, 14 of 24. Now, I'm talking about, there's good quarterbacks that I'm talking about in here. And if you see the common thread, Lamar has 171 passing yards on 24 attempts, 14 to 24, TD, and a pick. All of these guys won their games. None of these guys, I think Flacco, save for Flacco, threw for 300 yards or more. And they may be in the ballpark of about 25 to 30 passes maximum. And that's like the thing. The reason the Steelers hadn't been losing with Kenny Pickett, despite not putting up Steve Young, Dan Marino, Peyton Manning type numbers, is because he might throw for around 200 yards and doesn't turn the ball over. And if Mason Rudolph is able to match like an 18 to 25, 220, 230 yards passing with a touchdown or two, even if he gives up the ball once and the Steelers defense can create a splash play, I believe they can win this game.
I'm basing this off recent performance. Recent
Don't do
performance
that. That gives us no hope.
That the defense is actually part of the weak link here, right? We were abused and run over by Trey Sermon. So, do I have reason to think Joe Mixon might be able to have some success based on last week? I sure do. But at the same time, we all know this is true. AFC North games that are in division are just different. They're different animals. I said this against the Browns when I didn't think they'd win early in the year, but they won, and I said it against the Ravens. You don't know what can happen in an AFC North game. Can they win this game? Yes, they can win this game. Do I think that I'm going to be driving home at 7 o'clock or 7:30 on Sunday or Saturday night feeling happy? No, I don't.
I would hope so. I know there's we don't know what the weather is going to be exactly. 50s, small chance of rain. I hope it's not like the Arizona stuff. Please no lightning. We don't need to be wet and cold and miserable like that. I mean, and as far as the rest of this game goes too, I guess it'd be a good time to cover some more of that. But yes, Brian, we talked about defense being a potential weak link for some time. As soon as Cole Holcomb went down, as soon as Quan Alexander, I'm tired of sounding like a broken record to our 2%ers and people that are, our faithful viewers and listeners out there. Thank you once again for catching us heading into your busy holiday schedules as well. Brian's been a broken record even on this same show. Almost sounds like the LT Walton interview I did years ago. Want to win a Super Bowl. We're just looking to win a championship. And I'm looking to see, the Steelers probably aren't anywhere near championship caliber at this point. We see a lot of different bodies being strewn about here. And really, if they have any type of hope of keeping playoff aspirations alive, they have to win this game. They probably have to win out. But
They have to win out. There's no question.
Could you imagine the scenario? Did I pitch this to you the last time? The Steelers go 5-1 in the AFC North and miss the playoffs.
Yes.
Well, it's plausible.
It's it's not likely. It is very plausible. It's not likely because it's not likely they're going to win out. But it is certainly viable that they could be 4-2 or 5-1 and miss the playoffs.
That's insane. You would never think that if we said that at the beginning of the year. And of course, injuries and things like that, ebb and flow, change a lot of that. But there's been poor football, poor play. We've mentioned it when it comes to special teams. And then special teams has its own issues. But I'm talking Marley, Presley Harvin has not been sharp. Punt and kick returns have been non-existent. That doesn't help the defense and field position whatsoever. The offense going 3 and out all the time. If there could at least be a sustained drive or two and they could play from a position of power, if they could get a freaking lead. Like, that was the problem with this Colts game. Like, you couldn't, can't you protect a lead? By the way, TJ Watt does lead the NFL in sacks with 16. Trey Hendrickson is tied for third behind Danielle Hunter, who has 15 and a half, and Khalil Mack and then Trey Hendrickson have 15 apiece. So we'll be on the TJ sack watch again, but he's probably not getting to where we want unless he gets gets them in bunches this weekend.
He's got 16 now. He'd have to get minimally 2.5 every game.
Yeah,
to break the record.
Yeah. The only other thing I think I could really cover here is this is a national TV game. So this one's on NBC or Peacock. If you're in Pittsburgh area, WPXI. Noah Eagle, I guess, might be related to Ian. You have that nepotism going. Chris Collinsworth was doing that with his kid on one of these last broadcasts. It's Noah along with Todd Blackledge and Catherine Tappan. They're not sending the big cruise. Everybody's like, we're using our vacation days for the Christmas or whatever. And then Mike Watts and Mike Mayock on the national radio call on Westwood One Sports. That's on Sirius XM and the internet at 88. That's the NFL Network channel. And if you want the Steelers, it's Sirius 85 and Sirius XM 225, 826 on the internet call. And of course, locally 102.5 WDVE FM and 970 WBGG AM with Bill Hillgrove, Craig Wolfley, Max Starks, Missy Matthews. Craig Rolstad is your referee. I haven't had any complaints about him yet. Just wait. And I think that'll about do it. It's not worth going through home and away records. Steelers are 4-4 at home. It does not feel like they're a home team. The Bengals are 3-3 on the road. These teams are even Steven against the spread. The Bengals are 6-2 against the spread. The Steelers are 7-7 this year. I want to see what the over-under is on the game because I did not pull that yet. Points scored. The Bengals are 21.9 per game. The Steelers are at a lowly 15.9, basically 16 points a game. That's not the worst in the NFL. That's 28th. Pretty close to being the worst. Bengals have given up 22.2, and the Steelers have given up 20.0. The takeaway differential, the Steelers are a +7, and the Bengals are now a +11, which is another reason why right now they have a better record than Pittsburgh does. 234 passing yards per game. That's 13th overall. They are 84 run yards per game, which is 31st in the NFL. The Steelers are 28th and 16th, respectively, with 177 yards passing and 110 on the ground. Defensively, the Bengals are 27th and 28th against the pass and the run, 254 and 128. The Steelers give up 225, which is 20th against the pass, and 121, which is 22nd against the run. These teams appear, for all intents and purposes, to be decently evenly matched. You're looking at an overall microcosm of the whole year where both teams have had their ebbs and flows. And I guess we'll just hang in here and see. At least this is a game that doesn't interfere with anyone's Christmas plans, I don't think. We're hoping for some decent weather Saturday in Pittsburgh, a 4:30 afternoon kickoff. And once again, NBC local TV, Sunday night football. Or on the Peacock, Brian, on the streaming on the Peacock. So,
is it? Can we shorten it? We can't. We could call it the P, but that's kind of gross. Can we use the other end of it and call it the that? Probably not. I'm not even going to say it because it sounds bad.
Why even bring it up?
I don't know, because I that's the way my mind works. I hear a word like peacock, and I'm like, and that other word, and I immediately go, well, they shortened the link.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out how we can shorten the name of Heinz Field, which it isn't anymore, from Acrisure, and I'm like, how can we shorten Acrisure? Can we call it the ACK? Let's go down to the ACK, or let's go to the Sure. But no, it's just, but Acrisure is a dumb name, and it's got no good names in it. Peacock needs to buy the rights to Acrisure Stadium, and it can become Peacock Stadium, and then we'll just say, let's go down to the.
If you could only see, like, where on earth did this conversation go? So
you said Peacock.
Yes, a juvenile you are, a child at heart, always. Like,
always. I've not grown up since I was 11.
I should be sitting here doing the hey Brian, that's pretty cool.
Right. Beavis and Butthead are awesome.
Yeah, he just said peacock. He just said peacock. Oh man. All right, that'll do it for us, folks. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas wherever you may be watching or listening from. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We tried to get some content your way. These become difficult. It's almost like, you're just waiting. It's that beloved pet that you just see like in agonizing pain, and it's getting towards the end of probably their best days are behind them. That's the way this season feels. And
well, you and I could take some solace in signing day for the Ohio State. The Ohio State University had a nice recruiting class come in.
I mean, they really should. It would be disappointing if they didn't. It'd be disappointing if they didn't. You know what I mean? I don't
know. At this point, I feel like, you lose to Michigan twice. You're no longer going to be in the playoff hunt this year. I don't know, or not even twice, 3 times. Like, it's just, I block out those losses to the place up north. And I even said the name, and now I want to vomit. So, it wouldn't surprise me. And they have had some guys jump off, right? Not forget the transfer portal. That thing's weird and strange, but they've had some decommits, as they say. So, I know that has nothing to do. The 2%ers are not all Ohio State fans. So they're like, yeah, you turned your shirt on, and it's too high. I could wear my shirt, but it doesn't really fit anymore because I'm much smaller than I was when we got those shirts.
Yeah, it might be a reason for us to do one more show if you're looking for any festive holiday gear. I don't know. It's getting about that last second, but FOCO.com, FOCOUSA.com, I think is their full website. But they produced these. This one's an older version. I think they have newer ones, and then there's some other swag that we may be showing you in an upcoming episode. So shout out to those guys over there. They always treat us well. I will sport this. I'll be wearing this tailgating on Saturday. And yes, I will be tailgating. I do plan on it.
I will not wear that on Saturday.
I won't wear it to the game. I'll wear it tailgating. I'm not going to wear it in the game because I'm probably who knows what I'm going to need to be prepared for. I may need a rain poncho for all we know. This weather is just so bipolar. And that's the last thing. That's the last thing we need is like a multiple personality disorder, and it rains like a day or two before Christmas for this game. Slick conditions, like, throw all bets off if you have slick conditions out there. Wind, sometimes even cold, but that all depends. I mean, we're not talking about like Green Bay or Buffalo type conditions either, usually down in Pittsburgh. But it will beat last year's game on Christmas Eve, 9 degrees at kickoff for the Immaculate Reception 50th anniversary, which was a very somber moment. I believe, are we not a full year to the date? Maybe I'm off a day, but I believe it was on the 21st last year that we lost the great Franco Harris. So always in our memories here as well. I've got him sitting back here, good old Franco. So Brian, thanks for joining me, my friend. You geared up and ready for Christmas? Got everything squared away? Because I'm just ready to coast right on through the holidays right now and try and get a little R&R.
I was informed by my wife that I have spoiled my daughter. So
wait, just now? Like that hasn't, how she's significantly older than my 10-year-old. who is already
she's
spoiled.
23.
So she's just notifying you now of this?
Well, this year.
Oh, okay. Just
I've
this
spoiled
year.
her this year. And I don't know. It's different. It's different because I look at the pile of gifts, right? When you're little, right? The pile of gifts is huge because the toys are huge, right? When you're a little kid, the toys have to be really big. Why? Because you're dumb and you'll eat them. You put them in your mouth and swallow them. So they have to be huge so you can't swallow the toys. If you get older, everything gets smaller.
Yeah.
And now your pile is smaller, but the cost becomes way more. The cost becomes exponentially higher. So now I got this little teeny pile that's like 43 things. The cost is more than any 4 Christmases when she was a kid combined. It's ridiculous.
That's funny, man. So, yep. I cannot repeat what was texted to me by my cousin right now, but we're down 4 effing safeties. Who's I guess Thompson is the 4th. I guess so. If he doesn't end up playing, he goes, well, Patrick Peterson's better anyways. I'm like, how do we know that? We don't. Has he been playing safety? I'm like, he's been a tremendous big slot. And if they could just kind of move him around, really what they need to do is screw with Jake Browning's head. Jake Browning's been starting for about a month, and there are disguises and things that he may not have seen. And by all means, like, here's something I hadn't talked about that's actually relevant to football. Does it feel like the Steelers ever send a blitz? Like, they're almost always just like 4 men at the most. You know what I mean? Like, just the guys that are usually up front. They might move an inside linebacker and drop TJ or Alex into coverage instead.
We've thrown a Landon Roberts in there some, right? And I think Shandon Sullivan may have a sack.
You don't really, but no safety or DB type blitzes or.
We can't be. The problem we have right now is we can't survive without those guys. We can barely survive with those guys staying back.
Yeah, but is Jake Browning? Yeah, but if let's say you said Levi Wallace is already a weak link. That'll be my last thought. What the hell does it hurt? Just let him go after the quarterback. Throw his hands up in the air. Is Jake Browning going to catch that like right away? Like to recognize this guy is not Joe Montana, Dan Marino, any of these greats that are out there. It's Jake Browning. Put some pressure on the freaking guy and make him give him something he's not used to seeing. That
would be nice.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. So, all right, folks, that'll do it for us. Thank you for your patience. I know we're jumping around all over. Like I said, these games tend to be, we don't know. You know what I mean? And whenever we think we do know, then, once you think you know the answers, they're changing the questions. Good old Roddy Piper there. Over under on this game, Brian, 38.5. So there's a little more hope that probably they're thinking the Bengals are going to score. Steelers are plus 2.5.
38.5 says the Bengals score 28 points, 4 touchdowns. Bengals score 28, Steelers score 10.
Rough. We'll have more to talk about in the near future here. Post game to be determined, maybe middle of next week sometime, even if it's late, or maybe a combo show. Everyone enjoy.
Let's be honest.
For your holidays.
For a second. Let's be honest about the post game. Right? If we come out of this game feeling the same way we felt after the Colts and after the Patriots and after whoever that other loser team is that we lost.
The Arizona Cardinals.
If we Sunday, I'll be lucky I don't drive off the Pennsylvania Turnpike if I'm driving home that night having to deal with this. But anyway, let's say Sunday rolls around and it's the same result and it's as bad and ugly as it's been the last 3 games. You know what we're going to come on here and say post game? We're just going to come on here and go, same shit. Thanks. See ya.
Yep. It's going to be the Christmas vacation, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah.
It's just the vacation scene where they're at the Grand Canyon. This is it.
Kiss my ass, kiss his ass, kiss your ass.
It sucks. We're out.
All right, that'll do it for us, folks. Happy holidays to you and yours. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. Hey, be safe out there. Till next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, because he's always watching. Can't throw that in. And we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.